today we're going to solve Micro Midterm 2022 past paper. The exam is divided into 3 parts. The first one are the multiple choice questions. The first questions ask us what are the positive statements. The correct answer is the answer D, the statements of descriptions. Positive statements describe how the world is. It's based on the facts. Whereas the normative statements describe how the world ought to be, meaning that it takes into account the opinions, values, and statements of judgment. The second question, if an increase in price of a good A leads to a decrease in the demand for a good B, then A and B are answer A, complements. It is because complementary goods are those where an increase in the price of one good leads to a decrease in the demand for another. For example, peanut butter and jelly. Question 3. If the price of a good is lower than the equilibrium price, the correct answer is B. There is a shortage, known as excess demand, and the quantity supplied will rise. When a price is below equilibrium, demand exceeds supply, leading to a shortage. To equate the demand with supply, the price will need to increase. Question 4. Suppose that there is a decrease in both the supply and demand for good 1. Further, suppose the supply of good 1 decreases more than demand for this good. In the market for good 1, we would expect. The correct answer is C. At the equilibrium, the quantity decreases and the price rises. It is because larger decrease in supply relative to demand will generally lead to a higher prices and a decrease in quantity traded. Question 5. Which of the following is not a factor of production? The correct answer is C, as the factors of production are only land, labor, and the capital. Question 6. We consider the utility function is equal to ax plus by. The marginal rate of substitution is constant. Answer A. It is because the MRS is the ratio of the marginal utilities of two goods. Here, the marginal utilities of x and y are constants, as well A and B. Therefore, the MRS is constant. Question 7. Consider A and B are complementary goods. This implies that the MRS is decreasing. The correct answer is answer D. For the complementary goods, as the consumption of one good increases, the consumers would give up less and less of the other good to get more of the first one. Therefore, the MRS is decreasing. Question 8. Let X and Y be the two goods consumed by the same consumer. The opportunity cost of consuming 1 unit of good X is reflecting by, the correct answer is answer D, the marginal rate of substitution. Because the opportunity cost of consuming 1 more unit of good X in terms of good Y is given by the MRS of MX for Y. Question 9. Consider that the income elasticity of demand for a good A is equal to 0.2. What should be the consequence coming from a 10% increase of the unit price of this good? The correct answer is answer E, none of these answer. It is because the income elasticity of demand measures the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to a change in income, not the price. Thus, the given options do not directly relate to the given scenario in the question 9. Question 10. Consider two substitutable goods A and B. When the price of good A increases, the demand for good B decreases. This implies that answer C, the MRS is increasing. It's because for substitutes, as the price of one good increases, consumers will want more of the other good and less of the first one. This means that they are willing to give up more of the first good to get 1 more unit of the second one, implying an increasing MRS. Now we want to move on to the part 2 of the exam. Question 1. Explain how a price increase can modify the optimal consumption choice of a consumer. Consider two goods X and Y, where unit prices are Px and Py, and the utility function is a Cobb-Douglas function. The maximum length of the answer should be 15 lines. The answer that we are proposing is following. A consumer's ideal consumption decisions can be affected by the alterations in prices, primarily because of their impact on the budget constraints and the utility levels. When considering two goods, X and Y, the budget constraint is defined by Px times X plus Py times Y equals to M, where M represents the consumer's income, and it displays all the combinations of X and Y affordable given prices Px and Py. Meanwhile, the utility function often exemplified by a Cobb-Douglas equation, which is equal to X times alpha, Y times beta, where alpha and beta are constants, reflecting the relative significance of X and Y in the consumer's satisfaction. Hence, a price increase in good X, Px, can be modified and a consumer's optimal consumption choice by making X relatively more expensive. When the price of X increases, the consumer's original consumption point, where the indifference curve touched the initial budget line, becomes unaffordable due to the adjusted budget constraint. Consequently, the consumer selects a new bundle where their highest utility indifference curve aligns with the new budget line. Typically, this leads to reduced consumption of X and potentially increased substitution effect or unchanged consumption of Y, depending on how important X and Y are in the utility function. This would have effect on the budget line as it would rotate inwards. X-intercept becomes smaller while Y remains unchanged. Question 2, Part 2. Explain consumer's equilibrium in case of a single commodity. Consumer's equilibrium in microeconomics refers to the scenario in which a consumer has optimized their contaminant or utility given their financial resources and the current market price of a single commodity given the case. A little pro tip is to always start your discussion question with a definition. When dealing with a single commodity, understanding consumer's equilibrium involves considering the extra satisfaction known as marginal utility, MU, obtained from consuming the last unit of the commodity in relation to its price. Equilibrium with respect to a single commodity is achieved when the condition of MU divided by P is equal to marginal utility obtained from spending money, where MU stands from the marginal utility, P for price of the commodity. In simpler words, it's a condition, implies that the last unit of money spent on the commodity should offer the same level of satisfaction as if it were used on any other product or service. Failure to meet this condition implies that the consumer could enhance an overall satisfaction by relocating their spending. Part 3. Exercise. We consider that the utility function of an individual is given by x1, x2 is equal to x1 to the power of 0.3, x2 to the power of 0.7. Let P1 and P2 denote the unit prices of x1 and x2. The individual's income is equal to y. Question 1. Given the equation of income consumption curve in the plan x1, x2, the income consumption curve traces out the consumer's optimal consumption bundles as their income changes, holding the price constants. For the Cobb-Douglas preferences, the ratio of goods consumed is equal to x1 divided by x2, where it is always constant as the different income levels and it determined by the exponent of the utility function. Moving on, given utility x1 to x2 is equal to, as we previously mentioned, x1 to the power of 0.3, x2 to the power of 0.7, where the ratio, which we need to calculate, is equal to x1 divided by x2. Therefore, it will be equal to 0.3 divided by 0.7. Thus, the ICC is represented by, for x2, the second x2 is equal to 0.7 divided by 0.3 x1. Therefore, we can just cut it in the mathematical way, and the x2 ICC will be equal to 7 divided by 3 of good 1. Okay, can you stop and we will move on to the next question from the Question 2. Derive the optimal level of consumption as a function of unit prices, and the income denotate the demand function x1 parenthesis p1 p2 y parenthesis and x2 parenthesis p1 p2 y parenthesis. Given the budget constraint p1 times x1 plus p2 times x2 is equals to y, where y is our income. Given the Cobb-Douglas nature of the utility function, the share of the income spent of each goods is fixed. x1 times p1 is equal to 0.3 y, whereas x2 times p2 is equal to 0.7 y. For these demand functions, we can easily calculate that x1 parenthesis p1 p2 y is equal to 0.3y divided by p1, which is the price 1. Whereas for the second good x2 is equal to x2 parenthesis p1 p2 y parenthesis, which is equal to 0.7y divided by p2, which is the second price. Question 3. Determine the angle curve for each good. What even is the angle curve? The angle curve represents the relationship between the quantity demanded of a good and income while keeping the price constant. From our derived demand functions, x1 equals to 0.3 y divided by p1, and for the second good, x2 equals to 0.7 times y divided by p2, where p stands for the price, y stands for the income. Both angles curve are linearly and upward sloping function, meaning that both of the goods are no more goods, as we know that we can classify them due to the elasticity of demand. On the slides, you are able to see how the diagram should look like and how it should be graphed. Question 4. Suppose initially the prices are P01 equals to P02 equals to 1, and the income, which is denoted by Y, is equal to 32. Calculate the total effect on the demand for good 1 of a decrease in P1 from 1 to a half. Given P01 equals to 1, P02 equals to 1, and Y equals to 32. We know that the initial consumption of good 1 is x01 equals to 0.3 times the 32, our income, and we divide it by 1. The result for it is 9.6. However, with the decrease in P1 to half, we know that x1 is equal to 0.3 times, again, 32, our income. We divide it by a half, which is the decrease of price. We get a result of 19.5. Therefore, the total effect is x1 divided by x0 to 1. Therefore, it's equal to 19.2 minus 9 minus 6. Therefore, the total effect is equal to 9.6. The demand for good 1 doubled as its price was halved. This is the consistent with the characteristics of a Cobb-Douglas utility function. The consumers reallocate their budget to maintain fixed expenditure shares for both goods in the equilibrium. The decrease in price for good 1 made it relatively cheaper, promoting the consumer to buy more of it while keeping the expenditure on the good 2 constant. Bye bye. Good luck on your midterms.